I don't know what you do, but I'll let you. We will set you to that. Turn the format. Kind of make you big.
That's not even nothing true. These are professionals. Okay, back up, chicken. Speaking of which, I went to a revival for lunch today. Fried chicken.
I had a customer meeting in Memphis, and I interviewed my customer there this week. Today is a MacAdmin sous chef. So here, all places to go. I had some party, fried chicken. There's one place where we went to fried chicken. We had fried chicken, fried onion, fried pickles, and Jesus.
That's what you basically conquered the entire side. Like there's greens.
In the end, that was
We'll go grab a seat.
I got one. I'm going to take two. So now we have hey. Well, but I was contract. Yes. Free buckets. See some There were like 3 minutes. Yeah. Move into building 1899 that had been made for over 10 years.
Yeah, that's the other one. We have our other office in New York. So, partners in New York. That's not a square.
No one wants to be the first one to go there.
And so,
Well,
well,
that's it. Don't be first.
we certainly won't have that last slice problem. We'll go first. But yeah. Oh, I thought we did that better than.
No.
Long time no see.
Good to see you again, Jim.
Quite a interesting drive from Bloomington.
Why is that?
So much traffic. How you doing?
Good. I'm trying to figure out how to get this started. We normally don't use Hangouts, and I noticed that it's still not on air.
You'll figure it
I
out. I'm
hope.
gonna grab a slice. Did you already eat?
I haven't yet, but I ate kind of late, so I'm fine.
Everything was upside down. That's the free
If somebody says something, I was just Let me see.
If you hold command down, you press on there, it'll tell you
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody in person here as well as online. We are streaming the event here tonight, so we'll have both online audience as well as in-person audience. So we'll be managing that best we can. One of the first things we always like to do at our meetups is really just go around the room, do introductions, because certainly with this being a community, we want to hear about who else in our community, what people are up to. Maybe you've got something interesting going on. And with this, as long as we're going around the room, if you happen to have a job opening as well, go ahead and please let people know about that. We're always looking to grow the community of MacAdmins, and so whenever there's an opportunity, we want to make sure that we know about that and to get that out into the field. So I guess we'll start with the host here this evening. My name is John Wetter. I'm the Technical Services Manager at Hopkins Schools here in the West Metro, and part of the steering committee here. So, Bill, do you want to?
So I have not been listening to anything he's been talking about. I've been trying to listen to
Introductions.
But my name's William Smith. I am with Jam. My coworker Bryson, he was supposed to be here with us tonight, but he couldn't make it. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate having you here.
I'm Brian Shaw. Work at Target as an engineer.
Brad Schmidt, work at Hopkins Public Schools.
Pass the mic.
William Pierce, whoa, I work at Common Void.
Jeff Johnson, I'm a professional services engineer at Jamf.
Pete Johnson, engineer at Target.
Keith Richard, tech at Great Gibson. Joe Keeper, engineer at Target.
John Putnam, I'm desktop support manager at Minnesota State University in Meetup.
Josh Smith, I'm an engineer at Randall Lakes.
I'm Pat McKay. I'm currently over as IT support.
Hi, I'm Mark Sampers. I'm desktop support on MacAdmins for School District 196.
Lisa Moshinsky, desktop support for MacAdmins schools.
Nick Lito, I'm support at MacAdmins schools.
Hi, Jill Borman, network and desktop support services in MacAdmins.
IT manager for CDX Design.
Hi, I'm Mike Bradshaw. I'm the regional IT manager for infrastructure for SGS Southern Americans.
Jason Hobson for the Video Clinic.
And Karen McElroy with Minneapolis Public Schools.
Brad, you mentioned to watch the Southern Graphics website for potential opening in Q1.
All right. We're looking for Southern Graphics, potential opening for a Mac engineer,
Desktop support.
and desktop support. Mike, what do you think? We're going to talk about Jamf.
Somebody want to talk about Jamf? Jamfs?
Thank you, Jamf Software, for pizza today and allowing us to invade their space.
It's not Jamf software anymore. It's just Jamf.
It's just Jamf. All right, so they make cats. And Jamf Pros. And we love them. And I think most of you probably are aware that Jamf is a software company in Minneapolis, and they have operations all over the world now. And the next job is managing clients, iOS and macOS. Can we get a round of applause for Jamf? All right, well, should we jump into news? Say no to crack, y'all. So one of the things we're thinking about doing this time around is we've got some swag over here. We've got some news articles over here, and we have some content experts over here. So if you'd like to earn some swag, you know about this content, let's hear about it from you. Do I have a volunteer to talk about crack? It's your choice of a bag. Jamf. Maybe some Jamf. Jamf now. You're going to win a bag, Brian.
I'm excited.
Forget about Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, I'll take that. So, crack patch for Sierra and then with 10.13.1 for high Sierra. We noticed at Target issue with the crack patch from Sierra where a few machines would enter a state where part of the setup assistant would start running and prevent logins. So there's a part of the setup assistant called MD System Administration. I think that's what it's called. And we're currently working with Apple trying to resolve that. We don't have a fix for that. It is a limited number of machines, but it's kind of an odd situation that showed up after that Sierra crack patch. Evidently, not many places are seeing that, so it's maybe isolated our environment, but it's still kind of weird. Otherwise, it's been 10.15.1's been solid. Sierra.
Anyone have any comments, anything to add about that impacting your environment?
Anybody know if they're like actual network infrastructure patch, like APs and stuff like this?
We patched our Cisco APs and we're not roaming very well. I don't know if they're related or not. You might patch that before you patch all your APs.
Yeah, sure. You're only as good as the latest update.
For anyone streaming that didn't see this, everyone raise their hands. They're all patched. Don't worry about it. They're not vulnerable. All right, let's move on. See you later, Aviator. Ooh. Come on, can I entice anybody with some swag? Anybody that wants to talk about Aviator? Is this news to everybody? This is the okay, this is the one where it quarantines a file, and then in the quarantine, the description of where it needs to be restored to is changed, and so then when it's moved out of the quarantine, it's moved into a protected location, and all sorts of fun DLL stuff happens.
It gets the AV to actually run the bad code.
Gets the AV to restore the bad code to the wrong spot. And because the AV runs at such a high level access, once you pwn the AV, you've got system. So
You can restore it to a protected system level location. So
unless it's SIP, right?
that's actually related. I guess that's a sub piece is what people have obviously been doing looking at antiviruses lately, just because of some certain foreign things going on as well. If you didn't see the articles just about Kaspersky basically being used with or without their knowledge as a transport mechanism for moving classified top secret materials off of a contractor laptop to our friends in Moscow. And I think that's really a lot where some of this has come from. It's just a lot more people have started really looking at antiviruses again and going, that's a piece of software that has an awful lot of access to every system in our enterprise. Do we need to have it? You know, that's kind of the piece where you have all of the compliance stuff kind of butting heads with perhaps what's the emerging best practices around that. And I think we've seen that even, you know, recently, JNUC in the last couple of years, the folks at IBM have talked about how they don't run antivirus in their environment, except within the sub pieces where they have a compliance requirement for running it. And so it's been kind of an interesting progression, you know, as I've looked at it even personally, thinking about antivirus and that being something that maybe should just live at the network layer instead of at every single client layer, that we should be listening to what our devices are trying to do as a whole and where they're talking to, instead of trying to do some sort of a definitions-based thing on all of our clients, which we all know. I mean, has anybody here ever had a problem with an antivirus software? All right, I'll take the uneasy laughter as confirmation of that. So I think this story, along with that Kaspersky story, I think all these together, at least for myself, are really getting that conversation going in my own head, at least, of whether that's something we need to be looking at. You know, should antivirus still be the default anywhere? So, anybody else have anything to add, both specifically to this story or also just as the antivirus story in general?
So I think I read the story, but was it like in the beginning? It sounds like they're all bad, but that halfway through they kind of mark which ones have got this solved and have not got it solved. Does that sound right?
If I remember right, there were some that handled it differently.
So you might find yours in there in the good pile.
I think the takeaway, though, is that while this potential thing may be solved, once you get access to that AV center, you could do a lot of other things. Is anyone actively, consciously objecting to antivirus in their environment and want to talk about it? How about if I take the second part off? All right, moving along.
This is probably my favorite news story in the roundup this time, because we've had a ton of conversations about this just recently in a couple of meetings that I've been around, talking about security stuff and the direction we go with this. Did everybody see the new NIST standards that were published, I believe, in July, somewhere around there? That essentially NIST is now saying, oh, that whole thing about big, long, complex passwords that we make you change every 90 days. No, don't gotta do that. So a lot of that really, it's a really interesting paper. Also, conversation about this at JNUC if you went to the DoD presentation in the last day, dealing with just security within the Department of Defense. And talking about passwords, there's interesting conversations because you have all these different departments, which NIST is what starts some of those standards, now being at almost complete odds with the rest of the standards within their department. And you know, frankly, I think everybody looks at these and at least starts as a best practice point from the NIST standards. We look at in our environment the PCI side of the world. Yes, that's a long, complex, every 90 days revolving of passwords. And essentially, NIST is coming out and saying that's no longer a best practice. So it'll be interesting to see from a compliance there again, compliance side of the house, how long is it going to take them to catch up with what NIST is now saying around their password documents? Anybody have any thoughts about this, or maybe a unique take on this in your environment that you might be interested in talking about?
I'm a little shy, but I'm hoping a little swagger will come my way. I'm actually going to go back to the virus stuff.
Sure.
We've seen an uptick in viruses and malware on our Mac workstations, seeing hijacking of Safari browsers that we haven't seen before. And it might be because we've moved everybody off onto a laptop. But we've also seen some tricky emails being sent out with directing them to pages that look like our page, but aren't quite our page. And then some nasty stuff that's kind of come on from that. So I don't know if you've seen that, looking at your launch agents to see if you have anything interesting sitting there. Because that's what they're doing.
Come get your own swag.
Anybody have any comments on that or elsewhere? It's kind of interesting. It sounds like some really spearfishing attacks, really directed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would second that. Our number one problem is phishing and people losing control of their passwords and their accounts. So we're really trying to embrace this. I know we're going to have to fight that because a lot of upper management feels that good password hygiene is changing every 90 days. And you have to have a number and a letter and characters you can type. But yeah, I totally agree. We're seeing that as well. And we're not sure how we're going to get ahead of that. Because it's happening to people who've gone through training and they're smart people and big people. Just that urgent mail message popped up and they entered their user and their password and bam. Now we've got 100 mails that we're trying to get their exchange admin to recall and block. They're going to clients, and so it's not a good situation. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna, we're Office 365. I don't know if we're gonna go into and have that sort of analytics to help, crack down on that login. It's a valid login, but it's happening overseas with our users here, or whether we have to train differently. And I'm not sure what the answer is going to be, but yeah, we're going to have to address
that. I don't know if people are blocking browser extensions in their environment. We haven't seen very many viruses or malware come through, but people have installed some third-party tools and not realizing what they've done. And we have one recently where it just started talking through the speaker. It said, "This person watches porn. This person watches porn," and it was this sweet old woman. And I'm like, okay, just uninstall this. But are people in their environment just blocking browser extensions outright, or whitelisting ones?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I can tell you we're not blocking browser extensions. But we started to look at how do we monitor launch agents and extensions a little better, and specifically launch agents really, and potentially using Collide, have you heard of Collide? It's a good source tool that allows you to use OS query to monitor some of them. So, but yeah, we want to be a little better about that. I really think antivirus is pretty effective for the most part on that. And so we already have SIP enabled in our environment. We have all the standard Apple security measures. I think there's a gap there in kind of watching launch agents and what people are installing. In our environment, kind of a mix of users. You have some developers who have all admin rights, and then you have others that are designers who don't have admin rights. So, but more than half of our environment has admin rights now, which is a pretty big shift from a few years ago. So it's requiring us to address security in a different way. So.
Can you get a show of hands if anybody thinks Jamf plus OS query might be a good mix of technologies? That's what I was thinking that might be good.
Just to piggyback off Pete's stuff and also about the spear phishing questions, which I think were the original questions. At Target, they try to phish us all the time. So that's really the educational part. They're going to call you and say, "Hi, this is the IT department, which when you're the IT department, you know it, but if you're not in that department, you might not necessarily. And then you'll get emails, and if you go through that email, you get enrolled into a securities class. So that's one way to avoid it, but I think it's education, right? You have to teach people to be wary of that. They're not going to necessarily be wary of
Well, I think there's a fallacy that Macs aren't impacted by it, that everybody says they're not
Right,
impacted.
right. And I mean,
So they just don't.
so like we're talking about antivirus, but we have a lot of different security ways to do security. Now we got SSL on your side, we got proxies, we got data loss protection, DLP, which is expecting clipboard contents, or if you're uploading a file to a service like Slack has a DLP agent, you can't upload PII like credit card numbers. There's all these different agents, right? It's less about the actual, oh, you got a word macro, that's kind of not really a threat. Now it's all these new tools.
I would say that the majority of the attacks or vulnerabilities happen through social engineering. So some of the columns I know in the state column system are doing like mobile for they're doing phishing of their own employees to see who is calling for it and use that as a training tool to do that. And also doing like that.
There have been ideas about that, but then also that have been shot down due to bargaining unit agreements in place.
So maybe you guys already covered this, but let's say walk in, I'm in education, you walk in, you see the post-it note on the laptop, username and password. What do you guys do in that situation? Right now, I'm starting to disable their account, and I mean, they can't wait, they can't do this, can't do that, until they come back down to the district offices and get unlocked because they did that. I mean, after we took our old laptops and we had, I think 130 post-it notes of usernames and passwords out of approximately 1,400.
Thanks for your support of 3M.
I think they just give those to us for free.
They should, considering the water.
So I'll challenge that. What's the difference of that with taking a picture with your smartphone? You can't control that. There's ways to store all that stuff outside of in an insecure spot. You can't control it. So,
Right, but you figure somewhere.
yeah.
Because we imagine, you're a kid, you want to do whatever you come up on your teacher.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risk. It's a risk.
Like that.
I struggle with how to teach that good password behavior, right? Is it nice words? Is it a couple words that you're going to remember and you can type easily? And then the pin that you force to change, maybe that pin is on the sticky note. So I try to, and it doesn't scale, right? I can't go to every user and have that in-depth discussion as to why that's the right choice for them to secure their account. But, you know, I don't know how we're going to do that, how we're going to get out of that. I'm real hopeful with iOS 11 and Safari that the password filling is really nice. My IT team uses one password, but we can't afford that across the enterprise, and it may not be the right solution for general users across the enterprise. So I think it's really hard. It's like I feel like I failed that person because I wasn't there to help them come up with a better way to get into their machine quickly and securely. But yeah, I mean, with grading, like that's the sanctity of grades, and if the student gets in. So I don't blame you at all for taking that stance. It's just I don't know the right answer. So if somebody had the answer, we wouldn't be talking about this, right?
No pressure, Pete.
Is there anybody looking at biometrics at all, like using the touch ID sensor? And I know that's something we've been able to hardware on it. And, I have it on my touch bar, it's great. Like it's so much more convenient than having a password every time. But I mean, I think ultimately that's where hopefully the industry will go. So we see Apple with the Face ID now, the recognition there, but I mean, I think all of our Macs eventually will have some kind of biometric scanning or biometric identity option. So hopefully we'll get there. Because with passwords, I think it's instinctively never going to be secure. It's something that we won't solve.
Is there anybody going there, or smart cards, or combination, multi-factor? Is there
You're using 2.0?
One thing that we're implementing for a lot of online services is Centrify, which will allow us for multi-factor authentication in different forms. And it can be based on internal networks, external, or global, things like that. But, just for the system login, that's the issue. Centrify is at least locking out for services, accessing our different corporate services, but not necessarily hardware.
anybody else? Okay. Let's take this one.
Brian?
Does everybody know what this is? So this is the High Sierra introduced feature requiring user approval of system-level cats for kernel extensions. So if you run security agents, like we just talked about, you could potentially have a situation where you're requiring a user to approve it or it won't load. And it was actually a 30-minute window from seeing that dialogue that the user had the time to accept it. In the early betas, they only had the only ability they added to actually approve them was a binary. I totally forgot the name of the binary. That would allow you to approve that CAS. But in later options, they allow MDM providers to approve that, which is another move towards MDM and jump for Mac management, it seems like. But, how many people are running High Sierra? I mean, not on your Mac. I mean, I hope you have a production. Yeah. Any comments on the High Sierra kicks pop overs?
Can I add to that?
So from what I understand here with this kernel extension approval is that Apple was going to make it user approved only if you're a new 1013 machine, a kernel extension, it appears to load, and then the user has to click through something. Apple changed it in the final release where if it's enrolled in MDM, it goes through. In a new beta coming out, I hear that there's this new notion of user-approved MDM. So it's like a new class of entitlements, somewhat like in iOS where we went from just here's all the things we can do to a device, but now it's supervised, so we can apply all their profiles to it. We're seeing that with approved extensions where we can have an allow list now in a config profile go out to a machine, but if that machine doesn't have the status of user approved MDM enrollment, that won't apply. In order to get your device into that state, you have to go through DEP enrollment and you'll be in, or the user has to click a button approving that enrollment. So if you do any imaging and you have like a quick add package that enrolls your Mac in various MDMs and management platforms, that's going to kick off potentially a prompt to your user at that time, or you don't get that extra entitlement. Therefore, you can't manage this specific set of commands with a config profile. I'm guessing this isn't the only thing that's going to be required, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see other things
migrate to needing that specific entitlement. So if you're imaging, and that's how you're getting your devices under MDM management, or want to look at the 10.13.2 beta, get in through Appleseed or through the developer program or something, take a look at it and see how it'll impact your environment, because it could be a potential workflow issue, especially as I think about it in computer labs where the DEP is not really going to work very well to get many devices on board. So be aware of that. That's the main takeaway from this, is something's coming. Any other thoughts on that before we move on? I think we might be out of topics. So what were your thoughts about JNUC this year? Is it the best JNUC ever? Worst JNUC ever? Pat, what's up? Where were you? I myself thought it was a very good JNUC. I really did like the Hyatt quite a bit. I thought it did a nice job of actually breaking all of us up into smaller groups so we could have more meaningful hallway conversations and not, jamming everyone into essentially 2 areas at the Guthrie. So I thought that was quite nice. I think it was around 1,600? 15, 16? Anybody make it to JNUC? Yeah, it was a good time. I saw the early bird pricing just went out today, and that's $4.99. So I think it's worthwhile to check it out. There's 60 videos available now on their website. Definitely a lot of good sessions. I know for myself, and even had John there and one other coworker, we struggle sometimes to hit all the sessions that we wanted to go to. There's some community notes as well that people took as a community. Not sure where you could find those. Maybe on the JNUC channel, I think on Slack. If you go there, it should be pinned to the top somewhere. Anyone have any thoughts about JNUC? Any big takeaways?
How many people are on JAMP 10?
Any big issues with JAMP 10?
How many people don't use MDM?
All right, well, we are at a break. Anybody want to bring any other topics up before we take some time to socialize before our main feature begins?
We didn't really do a good job at handing out swag, so if you want some JNUC swag, maybe just find some.
Bill does have a random number generator and a 40 megabyte spreadsheet. Okay, we'll give away swag at the end.
For those that did migrate to version 10, was there a big long pause and wait for the database to convert, or was that smooth? Or?
It's no 8 to 9 conversion. It was not that long, maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of the underpinnings have been there for a while. Yeah, but it wasn't a major change. I mean, if you look at the interface, all your workflows are going to maintain a couple of new click buttons here and there, get you some additional features. And otherwise, it's really just the interface.
I think it's kind of interesting. It seems like Jamf, it seems like Jamf kind of did something almost like what Apple did, frankly, with the 10.3, moving all the devices to APFS. They said, oh yeah, well, we've actually been doing that in the background for the last couple updates. I kind of feel like Jamf, in a way, has been doing that with, the 9.98 and 9.101s. They've been doing some stuff where, all right, this update's going to take longer because we're now indexing this table, or this update's taking longer because a table is being created to do this. And so I think, in a way, Jamf almost did the same kind of deal getting to 10, at least that's how I feel. That's how I'm kind of looking at it. They did kind of the same thing as what Apple did with APFS, is that this stuff has been kind of slipstreaming in as we've been going through the last several updates. So
Yeah, one of the issues that we run into with 10 is self-service crashing. So we reported this to Jam. I don't know if it's something special about our environment, but just that right now. So when a user launches it, especially if you try to close it and relaunch it right away.
Any other thoughts around Jam 10? Any other thoughts about anything? All right, well, why don't we break for a little bit, socialize, maybe talk to somebody you don't know. And we'll get back together, I think about 6:50, a little quarter later, or so.
So I gotta send the invites to Paul and Schwiebert here. Oops.
I mean,
You know, if we go out to use the restroom, we can get back in.
Should be able to. I think the doors are supposed to stay open until 8 or something. Do you have your card? But it should work.
It's invalid. I didn't get a new one.
Just in case. I know I'm still getting in, so I still work here. I'll find it.
How often do you come in here? Once a week? Once a month?
Maybe once every couple of months. And I have no idea which one it is.
I'll figure it
One's
out.
for the building.
Okay.
Sure. Oh, cool. Did you have to use them to get back in, Jeff? Hmm. Maybe if I unmuted myself, that might help.
Can you hear us?
I hear you, yes.
Great. We're trying to put the deck on this Mac now.
So good, it was just the Mac.
Well, the second link, the link you sent us in Slack, is the only one that actually worked.
Oh, okay. Gotta love technology.
Sorry. Paul and I are shuffling spots over here to
All right.
get files in the right place. Is this on right, or is it talking?
No, it's
on right. So
All
he's
right.
hearing me through these headphones.
Okay.
And
Right,
I'm
right
gonna-
you're hearing me through the goofy little earpiece headphones. Paul's going to switch us to the real mic in a minute here.
Okay,
Just
you
a minute.
sound just fine.
Well, but you won't be able to hear him.
Okay, okay, that helps. And once you guys get your side situated, then I'll unplug my headset and see if I can get you over the loudspeaker here. And fair warning, you're already up on the big screen.
I have no idea what you're looking at, so.
Hopefully it's
What
trying
you're
to
saying is I shouldn't pick my nose.
pretty much, yeah. If I had the second laptop up, which was not working a while ago, I'd actually be able to show you what the room looks like. But I've only got the one laptop this time.
That's
So
okay.
it's going to have you guys on it.
And Paul's not even listening to us yet. He's
All right.
He's doing IT management stuff. They want the input. There you go. All right, we switched mics. Can you hear us?
Yep, hear you just fine.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? So if I hear you, that means you're both on that good microphone then, right?
That's the idea.
Hot dog. All right, I am going to...
You gotta get the deck up, though. Get the deck up.
Oh, yeah.
Got them in the wrong ears?
No, I pointed at him, not at the computer. So he's like, what are you talking about?
All right. So I'm going to unplug my headset and see what it takes to get the audio. So I might have you just do a couple of tests in a little bit, okay?
Okay.
All right. All right, I see your screen. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, you can. Not sure what we're sharing yet.
Yeah, let me go see if I need to go turn you up. Give me just a second.
Move this down a little bit. We can see ourselves in the bottom. Move this one up and move his down, because that way he's got not so far. He's got in the bottom of his window. He's got us on.
Can you guys hear me at
That's
all?
what he's showing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I can hear
I
you.
think you're just coming through the regular speaker, though, not over the. Let me see if I need to do something else to get you over.
Okay.
Hold on.
That's why I like having two monitors. I can try and bring the live stream up. The live stream.
Okay, I've got you about halfway up. Can you say something?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, Bill.
A little bit louder. Let me back up.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, I think I'm still getting you through the speaker here. Let me go try turning up just a little bit more, just in case.
Just mute that so we don't. Full screen. You can see. Okay. If we put this into slideshow mode, you should see that update. No?
Hey guys, it's John. Could you just talk a little bit so we can try to get some audio levels here in the town hall?
Sure. Testing 1, 2, 3. Blah blah blah.
Hey John,
We're just getting it here, Bill.
Right. We're on delay. It looks like.
So I don't know if it's there or if it's on our side. It's probably on our, over here. I mean, we should be coming out through this, and I've got the audio turned up.
So spacebar here to advance.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, guys?
Yes.
We're on as far as we know. We've got screen shared and our slideshow is ready.
Alrighty, yeah, we're getting your audio here on the laptop. We're just trying to get it to the overheads here.
Okay, perfect.
We're patient.
And we appreciate that.
$30 seconds.
Try it now, Bill. All right, get a little more audio from you guys.
Can you hear us?
So I changed it to the HDMI output as the speaker.
We're here.
Huh?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
We're just on delay.
Nothing. I just changed it to the built-in output. All right. So I guess it's laying a mic on the speaker then.
They're up there. They can't get their audio out to the out to their overhead.
Okay.
You can hear it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, now I have
I think it might. So you adjusted the audio out, right?
Yeah, to default speakers. I went to HDMI.
Yeah. Okay.
Setting
Yeah.
to be the output.
Oh, yeah. HDMI is not working.
No, that's the input. The output should be. This is turning over the wire, so.
No.
I didn't know whether
they're coming through. It's just
whether Hangouts had like a separate audio input setting.
Can you break it out off of the like a MIDI jack or something instead of the?
Everything else comes through that HDMI.
There's no traditional audio.
Well, I don't even have a traditional audio port. No, I guess I've got that. That's true.
Any help here?
I don't know where.
But
the only thing is now I don't have audio back even to the speakers here.
I'm not sure.
Because if you run VGA, you've got to have a regular audio jack.
It's just charging another HDMI.
Is there any kind of audio jack under it? Because if you ran DVI, you wouldn't have audio.
Share the desktop.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole thing that we get the video.
Yeah.
It's
like an IR.
Yep.
Can you AirPlay the audio somewhere?
There's nothing over there to receive it.
Apple TV.
Yeah, it looks better.
I'll go turn down the audio.
Well, so we've got to get audio back here, though. It's not even coming off the mics now, or the speakers.
There's no,
Google's broadcasting that.
So can you even you can't get any local audio here?
I can hear through here with earbuds.
So if you go to Oh, you can select an Apple TV. Oh, the Apple TVs aren't in this room.
So you're on the HDMI out?
Yeah.
Well, we were. I'm getting off of that now. Hey guys, can we get us some more audio from you?
Hello, hello.
Hello. Can you hear us?
We're here in Redmond. Can you hear us?
What about
checking our messages?
Sonos speaker?
Can you hear us?
I don't have it.
I don't know. Are we on?
Regular audio jack. The world's against headphone jacks.
I hear lots of beeping and talking.
Yeah. Can you hear us at all, Bill?
All right, Paul, could we get some more audio from you? I'm not hearing you right now.
Hey, John, can you hear me? Hey, John, can you hear me at all? This is Paul.
I'm not sure that's working right. Or Google Hangouts.
Anything at all?
Hello.
All right, it appears we're not. Something happened on our audio on this side.
Okay.
I'll switch to the internal microphone just to see whether that makes any difference.
Oh, there we go. I just got audio from you.
Oh, you got audio?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna try to go and turn on the slideshow again and see if can you hear it? Still hear us?
Yes, I do still hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Were we still here?
Yep, we've got you now.
Okay.
Awesome.
We won't touch anything. I hope what we're sending to them is happening instantaneously, and it's just the rebroadcast.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
delayed. Can you still hear us? Just checking. Hello? Hello?
Hey, can you still hear us?
Hello? We take it out of slideshow and just. Can you hear us? Maybe they're not paying attention. I don't know.
You still hear us, guys?
Yeah, a little bit more audio there again, Paul.
Yeah, can you still hear us?
Yes, I do hear you.
Okay, I just want to make sure I can go in slideshow and you can still hear us here. Okay, well, let me know if I cut out at any point.
Keep talking, Paul.
Okay, what should I talk about? Current weather in Redmond?
It's raining. It's raining as usual.
Okay, sure. Goats are doing well.
Can you hear us, guys?
Yep, we're hearing you.
Okay.
So it seems like it works when we're in slideshow.
We're going to go ahead and get rolling here because we've got your audio coming in. So
perfect.
Let us bring the table back together or bring the room back together and we'll get rolling here.
We're ready.
All right, Paul and Schwiebert, you guys ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay. I apologize. We were supposed to have this actually going through properly, but we're kind of jury rigging this a little bit. We've got the handheld mic picking up the microphone or the audio from the computer. So that's why it sounds a little bit crazy. But a couple of years ago, we had Paul Bowden join MacAdmins Slack. He's brought in a whole bunch of folks. One of those folks is Erik Schwiebert, who has not presented to us before. So I want to kind of talk about him just a little bit. He has actually been with Microsoft at least 20 years, if I recall correctly, and has worked that entirety on Office for Mac.
That's correct.
So he's one of the long timers on this. So we're really glad to have him here with us. At this point, Paul Bowden, who's typically responsible for auto update and packaging, anything to do with volume licensing. and then Erik Schwiebert, who is really more about core Office. Not necessarily a specific application, but anything that kind of crosses the streams. That's his gig. I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves, and we're going to see how this works. So, Paul, Erik?
Sure.
Take it away,
Yeah,
please.
thanks, Bill. I'll go first. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all again. It's Paul here. So we're Erik and I are sat here in my office, and hopefully you're hearing us. So yeah, I've been around Microsoft for about 20 years now. Not all in the Mac space. I spent many of my years in the Exchange team. And you may notice that my Twitter handle is Mr. Exchange. I guess I haven't bothered renaming that yet. But yeah, for the last several years, I've been working on Office for Mac with awesome people like Schwieb. And yeah, I do a lot of update, installer, manageability, mal work. That tends to be my gig. Over to you, Schwieb.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erik Schwiebert. Most folks call me Schwieb. I have, as Bill said, been at Microsoft for 21 years and change at this point. I actually started prior to the Mac business unit, and I actually first started as an intern in summer '95, working on Excel years and years ago. And I work on what we call our foundations team. We support kind of the basic infrastructure that all of the apps for Office on the Mac and on iOS devices use and require to boot and get things done. So that's us.
Okay, hopefully my slides are coming through. So we wanted to talk to you about 3 particular subjects that kind of top on our mind today. So first up, you would have noticed if you're on the Insider Fast channels that we released what we call the 16.x builds probably 6 to 8 weeks ago now. And so this is kind of a big departure from the standard Office 2016 builds that you've seen from us over the past couple of years. And hopefully you've seen some good changes, but you would have also seen some like underlying spooky changes as well. So Schwieb is going to give you the full rundown on what we're doing with this big version change and why we're doing it. And then I'm going to cut back in and I'm going to talk a little bit about the engineering work that's going into Office 2019 for Mac. Yep, you did read that right. There is a 2019 version on the way. So I kind of want to give you a bit of a heads up as to how we're going to coordinate that, what happens to 2016, etc. And then I want to finish up talking about Mal 4.0 and command line support and ultra thin updates. Okay.
So let's start with a little history of Mac Office. The code base is 30 years old. 30 years of market innovation, 30 years of code. We joke inside Microsoft that it's old enough to buy its own alcohol. As a matter of fact, we have people working on the product who are younger than the code itself. So Office started initially as a series of individual apps. Word began on DOS in 1983. I have a lovely picture of Charles Simone here. I'm not entirely sure who else that is with him in the middle there. In 1985, Word moved to the Mac, and Excel actually started on the Mac. The first version of Excel was Macintosh only at the beginning. I love this little picture of Word. You can see that Word had 100% free memory, whatever that means, from January 1985. In 1989, Word made the jump to Windows. It only used I'm not sure how much memory it used, but we had 126K free out of our, maybe 640K. So early versions of Word on Windows, fairly standard, Windows 3 UI. In 1990, we started bundling the apps together. It was a great product. It sold well, but the apps were literally just separate apps on the same set of floppy disks. They didn't actually share any code, or very little code. Post that 1990 release, we thought it would be a good time to rewrite everything. We all know how well this works. So the next version of Word was codenamed Pyramid. It was going to be well architected. was going to have a common code base for Windows and the Mac. Both platforms were doing well at the time, but it didn't work. As a matter of fact, Pyramid never actually shipped. However, we took a few ideas from that, some of the architecture, single code base to target both platforms, and we shipped Word 6. Word 6 was a great product. It crushed the competition. The red line here is Word for Windows market share over the 80s and 90s, and you can see WordPerfect, the dark blue line, kind of vanishing into the sunset. But Mac Word 6 was not so good. I'm not sure how many of you remember Word 6. It was a pretty abysmal product. And, well, that's what was out there. In Office 97, we actually made the app share code. They shared a lot of code. As a matter of fact, huge amounts of the code base were rewritten. Every app used shared set of toolbars, shared set of memory management, and this large complex product missed its original ship date. When I joined the company as an intern in 1995, I worked on a product called Excel 96, which became Excel 97 when it shipped a year later. And because of that missing ship date, we prioritized, as a company, prioritized the Windows release over what was the beleaguered Mac at the time. And of course, that version had Clippy, which I love. So after we shipped Office 97, the company decided that in order to release a viable product on the Mac that was going to work better than Mac Word 6 or the other Office apps at the time, to split the code bases. We formed the Mac business unit in early 1997, 3 months after I joined the company. The Mac Office source code moved into its own fork, and this release was actually one of the most well-received versions of Office for Mac, certainly at the time and compared to Mac Word 6. In the 10 years that followed, we shipped 3 more versions of Mac Office. 2001 for the Mac, Office V.X a year later that actually had OS X support, Office 2004 for the Mac. But we lost over that time frame many of the benefits of the single code base. We only shared code intermittently and sporadically. If we felt we really needed to port a feature, typically from Windows to the Mac team was responsible for going out, grabbing that code, making it work on the Mac. And so feature sets began to diverge. The object model, the ways that you write macros to drive the apps to do things, those began to differ. And so we ended up with a product where, although they're both called Office, the feature sets were different. What you could do with them was different. And that became somewhat of a problem. This all culminated with Office 2008 for the Mac. We ended up in the midst of a perfect storm of competing requirements. In 2005, about partway through our work on Office, what became Office 2008, Apple announced the Intel processor switch. That brought us a brand new operating system with a brand new chip and a brand new architecture, brand new compiler that was different than what we were using, brand new development IDE, and the requirement that we had to use them. At the same time, Windows Office, in the product that became Windows Office 2007, invented new file formats. These are the OpenXML file formats. And these file formats assumed that every feature that Windows Office had was available and was a first-level piece of data to be read and written in and out of the file formats and displayed to the user. It also came with a brand new layout engine for images, text boxes, charts, all the things you see, and brand new document UI, including the ribbon. So Mac Office had to adopt all the Apple changes in order to even exist. We had to adopt the Intel chipset, we had to adopt the new tools, or we couldn't ship the product. At the same time, we had to adopt all the Windows Office changes to be somewhat compatible. Anybody remember this dialogue? This is all the areas where we discovered file features that we didn't have support for and were unable to deliver in the time frame necessary. So we had to do this at the same time. And so Windows Office 2007 shipped in January of 2007. Mac Office took another full year, lacking VB support, a number of file-based features. This was a problem. This was not sustainable. We were going to have to change. And then the world turned upside down. Apple shipped the iPhone and eventually the iPad. They grew like nothing before. And Microsoft really became, or was no longer, the 800-pound gorilla. And over time, as a company, Microsoft realized that rather than assuming customers would come to us, we had to go to them. We needed to have Office available on the devices that they were choosing to use. So we don't want to repeat the mistakes that we made that led up to Office 2008. So over the last 10 years, and seriously, this has been a long journey, we have begun and worked through a major code shift. We're pretty much undoing the code split that occurred 10 years earlier in '97. We, in that time frame, have continued to ship the suite. We had Office 2011, Office 2016, and now Office 2016 is shipping monthly. There's been a lot of discussion around that, about how to deploy updates. Paul's our expert in that area. But in the midst of this code shift, we have continued to ship the product. But what we're doing and have been doing is slowly and incrementally refactoring all of our code, moving the Mac Office code into the same repository as Windows Office. Different products, different shipping cycles, but in the same repository, so it's easier to share code. More frequently merging code back and forth between the two branches, with the goal of standing up all of our Mac Office code right next to Windows Office. So where are we today? Well, we have shipped Office on several more platforms. We have Office for iPad and iPhone. There's also Office for Android, Office for Windows Immersive. And the reason we're able to do that is because we've made some big core technical changes. What we've done is split the code into what we often liken to a sandwich, where we have a large middle layer. It's our shared common logic. This is where things like Excel's recalc engine or Word's text layout live. Imagine you are the CFO of JP Morgan Chase. If you have some financial model that you want your people to run, and they're going to run it on either a Windows machine or a Mac or an iPad or anything else, they darn well better calculate exactly the same. If you are printing your book or something with Word, you want your text layout ideally to be the same between Windows and Mac. There are some font qualifications that come into play that make that a little more challenging. But this is where this shared common logic lives. And the idea is to make this as big as possible, where it doesn't have dependencies on the operating system, and we can share that logic across platforms, across feature sets, to deliver the product everywhere we want to go with it. We have shared service code that lives somewhat in the cloud, somewhat in various backends. The UI layer needs to be a native experience for the platform we're on. If you're on an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device, touch is everything. If you're on a Mac, we need to be using native Mac controls. It has to look like a Mac. You know, when Steve Jobs talked about Aqua and everything being lickable, 13 years ago, we need to use controls that behave and feel and act natively to the current platform so that users are familiar and ready to go with it. But at the same time, we have this lower level underneath everything that also needs to be platform specific, where we talk to the file system, or we talk to events, or we manage memory, or anything we need to do to support that common logic that is, for the most case, platform agnostic. So we've teased these layers apart. And so the native UX layer is different on the Mac compared to on Android, compared to on iPad, compared to on Windows 32. This is what's primarily different from Macworld 6. Macworld 6 had one common UI that was written to a common Windows 32 layer. And when we work on new features, we will likely touch all these layers. Different people will be experts in different layers. So you have Mac experts in our team working on native user experience. We may have someone who is intimately familiar with Excel's recalc engine on all platforms, making changes and improvements such as multi-threaded recalculation for performance and things like that in that shared common logic. And then I work typically at the platform layer. So we've gone through a huge technology shift. What does this mean for you guys, though, for IT admins and the users that you support. To some large degree, it should almost mean nothing, because you know what? We've already done this for Office for the iPad. Believe it or not, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, we shipped Office for iPad from that converged code base. The Office for iPad code is the same code base as Office for Android. It is the same code base as Office for Win32. And coming very soon, Office 2016 version 16 for the Mac will be that same shared code base. So we're going to have more common code. This gives us more common features, gives us more object model alignment for making the apps do what you want. But there are a couple of caveats. It's still a work in progress, and we are not promising 100% parity. And by that, I mean, there are cases where there are features that only apply to one operating system or another, or apps like Access that we're not intending to bring to the Mac. But our goal is that for features that do exist, that for the most part, wherever possible, as much of it is common across platforms, but with a native experience and feel. So that's what we've been doing and why it matters. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul to talk about feature changes actually coming in Office 2016 and where we're going with 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Schwieb. So it's kind of really interesting how, you know, that shift to bring these two code bases together means kind of very little from your perspective. I know I was talking to a few folks probably about 6 months ago, telling them that, well, we're going to ship the same code as what we have on Win32 Office, and of course, you know, they were immediately worried that the whole UI was going to change and everything was going to look very Windows-like. And so hopefully now, through that kind of sandwich metaphor that Schwieb talked about, you can kind of understand that it really doesn't change an awful lot. However, you know, it is true that the core guts of the Mac Office product have fundamentally kind of changed because of this shift. And you know, we've seen in the Slack forums that people are saying, well, that the cursor blink rate looks a little different now on that 16 build than it did on 15. And so, you know, we're still working through that. And so there are going to be some fundamental changes that you'll notice. One of the, you know, obviously there has to be like a silver lining for all of this. And so what does it actually get us? First of all, it allows us to really catch up pretty quickly on past feature debt. I think Excel is probably the kind of the biggest example here, where, you know, I talk to large businesses and they tell me that, you know, their finance people try to use Excel on the Mac, and you know, they throw the word toy around. You know, it's just not as powerful as Excel on Windows, and some of that is just because the code is so old. It was forked, you know, many years ago, and it just hasn't evolved. So some features that, you know, already work today really well on the Windows version of Office, like real-time typing, co-authoring, real-time document save, multi-threaded recalc in Excel that just makes, you know, calc operations so much faster, and even, you know, it's fairly basic functions like, you know, getting proper like pivot charts, table slices, formulas and functions to work well. You know, just by moving to the 16 build series, you know, we've essentially picked up these features mostly for free. Now, as Schwieb kind of mentioned, you know, there's work both at the kind of the bottom platform layer and the UX layer to do. So there are many things that we have to do to those two layers to light up, you know, even more features. But the nice thing though is that it's now completely possible to light up those features in an expedient time manner. And as the developers work on new and, you know, more immersive features, there's a lot of kind of 3D work going on around here at the moment that, you know, we'll be able to bring those features to Office for Mac like really quickly, either at the same time as when they appear on the Office for Windows version, or, you know, just within a few months of each other. So it's great that everybody in this building, you know, when we design and we engineer a feature, it has to be designed and engineered for all platforms simultaneously. It's kind of no longer the case where, you know, we can just like, you know, forget about all the other platforms, just ship it on Windows, and then kind of worry about everybody else later. So that puts us in a much better position to bring that much needed parity to all the platforms. And I talked to some other people, and they have this assumption that Microsoft intentionally holds features back from the Mac Office version, that we love the Windows Office product, and we kind of save all of our best features for the Windows platform. And frankly, that's just not true. It's just engineering time that it's taken us in the past to go plagiarize that code from the other fork and bring it over and get it to compile and light it up.
The cost used to be very high to move features around. And with this new change, we're drastically shrinking that cost so that we can deliver them simultaneously or nearly simultaneously.
Yeah. So awesome. Okay, so that's what you'll see as part of the 16x build series. So kind of switching gears a little bit, we're also working on Office 2019 for both PC and Mac here. At Ignite, which was the end of September, there was a product announcement saying that 2019 is coming along, and there hasn't been an awful lot of details about what's in the product, what's it going to look like yet. But we'll share the slides, and I've linked to a couple of blog posts. One thing to be aware of, like how we're working behind the scenes here on how does this upgrade work, and if you're on a subscription, do you just get it? Do you have to go through this kind of conscious upgrade? And so I kind of wanted to shed a bit of light on what's going to happen there. So as you know, the Office 2016 for Mac product today, we call SKUless. It doesn't know until you activate it as to what it is, whether it's subscription or whether it's perpetual volume license product, and what features to show. So obviously, if you're subscription activated, we light up more features for you at runtime, even though all of those features are built into the product. And so 2019, you have to remember, when we use that year moniker, we're really talking about a new perpetual release. And by perpetual, I mean it's, the volume license model. It's, walking into Best Buy and picking up that card and, entering a PIN number. It is kind of the one-off purchase. So many of the features that are subscription only today in Office 2016 for Mac that are not service connected, meaning that they are purely client-side features, will implicitly just light up in the Office 2019 product. And I think about the morph transitions with inside PowerPoint. I think of focus mode in Word. So like esoteric features just built with inside the client, those features will make its way into the 2019 perpetual product. Some of the kind of subscription only features will stay subscription only. So it's not true to say that everything that we've released for subscription so far will just get rolled up and everything will be in 2019. That's not the case. Some subscription will always stay subscription, no matter which year version you purchase there. Because of some changes that we want to make in the operating system support, we're actually going to fork our code base. So in mid next year, we're going to have a branch that we're going to light up for servicing the 2016 product. So if you're using the 2016 product, you'll continue to get fixes and security updates and some features. But a lot of our effort is going to be in our main branch, which is where 2019 will come out of. MAU is going to have some intelligence to know how you're activated, and it will take you down the right upgrade path. So if you are currently a volume license user, MAU will continue to deliver the 2016 level updates to you. If you're subscription activated, MAU will take you down the other path, and essentially you start picking up the 2019 code base. So for subscription, you'll just see features light up incrementally. There is no kind of big bang 2019. And of course, that's the whole premise of Evergreen and being on subscription and continually receiving feature updates. But I just kind of wanted to let you know that you know, there is that kind of divergence which takes place as part of our engineering. Okay, so another gear shift. I wanted to talk to you about one of my pet projects, which is MAU 4.0. This has been a long time in the works, a little too long for many people, but we're finally getting there now. So there are two big features coming in MAU 4.0. The first is probably the largest, which is the command line support for detecting and applying updates. And then the second feature is support for what we call ultra-thin updates. And these are like small code patches that we can use for shipping hot fixes and even like new monthly updates at a much lower network cost. So we have just finished up the beta 1 here, and we just, in fact, submitted it for code signing, and then it should be live. So look out for it sometime end of day tomorrow when MAU 4.0 will be live, and I'll be making some announcements in the Slack channel for that. I wanted to show you kind of a couple of screenshots for what the command line looks like for MAU. So our command line tool is called MS Update. This is it running on my machine here, just behind me. So MS Update, there is a command. You can get the current configuration. You can ask it to list updates, and you can install. And of course, you have some arguments as well, where you can say, oh, I just want to kind of update Word today. I want to kind of leave the other apps alone. You can also specify a termination period. So you can kind of give a user, you know, a grace period of time before they will be, you know, forcibly terminated, and, you know, we can upgrade their app. And you can even specify, you know, some message text that will be displayed in a native OS notification that will appear for the user. The other big piece of feedback that we received is for the kind of the output for MS Update. We not only need to just, you know, display friendly messages through standard out, but, you know, we need to support a more kind of programmatic or accessible format. And so we can also output to a plist format. So you can kind of parse it within your own bash scripts or Python and, you know, do some other things with it. And then you can see some examples that we put down at the bottom of the help there as well. So a couple of screenshots here. What does this look like in practice? This is MS Update with the list format. So go check for new updates. And here I'm passing through the modifier of the plist formatter. So you can see that it spits to standard out. It's a standard kind of plist structure of which updates are available and, you know, what the versions are. And then this is a install. This is just a standard text standard out. This is not in the plist format, but this is running MS Update -I. So you can see that it's detected the updates, and then it just goes ahead, downloads, and installs the updates. The nice thing about this is that MS Update itself is just a very small, thin layer which surrounds the existing auto update daemon and the GUI features. So MS Update is not a standalone drop-in. You can't just deploy MS Update separately because it relies on a lot of the code which exists within inside the rest of the MAU application bundle. But you can either run MS Update yourself through terminal, or of course you can script it through management tools like Jamf and Farwave and LandRev and Monkey. So we kind of hope that it's going to be just like really useful for IT admins to just be able to have like direct control as to when updates take place. And so coupled with MAU 4.0, we're also going to be releasing ultra-thin update support. This is just a kind of another name for what we call binary-based Delta updates. This screenshot here kind of looks probably like what most of you have seen this week when you ran Office. We previously had 15.39 in last month's build. This Tuesday, we updated to 1540, but this is MAU 4, and what I want to draw your attention to is the size of the updates here. You can see that they are incredibly small compared to what you would normally see in terms of an update. And so this was a 1539 to 1540 update, and we're talking just over about 60 megs worth of packages to do that full update. So how does that kind of stack up with our other update methods? Well, I have like a handy update size comparison chart here. So we have rows which represent each of our individual applications inside the suite. And then the first column there is the size of a full update. And typically, you would deploy a full update if you were like pushing manually, because it doesn't, have any dependencies on any existing version or old version of that app being installed. So it's a full refresh. And you can see that, the bottom of that column, we're kind of pushing 4 gigs in terms of the sheer size of those individual apps combined. A couple of years ago, we came out with Delta updates, and that's kind of what most people have today. We produced Deltas for the last 3 versions. So if you're relatively up to date, you're only perhaps a couple of months behind or 1 month behind, then MAU will offer a Delta update, and this is going to be much smaller. So this Tuesday, if you were running 1539, you would have been offered a 1540 Delta update, and that would have been, just a shade over 700 megs in size. That should download across the wire. And if you look at the end column here, you can see the ultra thin version of the Delta updates. Those weigh in at 63 megs. So we're talking, kind of less than 10% of the total size there. So it's kind of, massive saving. MAU is really the controller. It's the brains behind what is the correct package to download and apply here. So, there are very specific variables that MAU analyzes to figure out what is the best way to get you updated. And sometimes MAU will make the decision that, this machine, it really just can't support a ultra thin update or a Delta update, and instead I'm just going to offer you a full update because it's safer. And that's the thing here. These update technologies, they are essentially Microsoft invented, and they don't conform to any standard APIs or mechanisms for performing updates. So these are our own optimizations. But of course, we have to be safe. And we would much rather provide you with a larger update and make sure that your apps are completely reliable and continue to boot after you've updated them, rather than taking a chance and just arbitrarily applying something that may not work. So the other nice thing about ultra thin app updates is any hot fixes, just like a .1 release for Outlook that we might come out with mid-month. The smallest possible app size is about 3.5 megs. So if we made a single line change inside the source code, which is typically what a hotfix is, then that's the size of the app update. And then ultra thin works by doing a binary-based diff between source and target, which results in this patch file. And my kind of next slide here, I just wanted to give you like a simplistic overview of how does Delta versus ultra thin work behind the scenes. So let's talk about Delta first. So imagine there's a 5 meg binary file in our 1539 package. So it's 5 megs in size. In our 1540 package, that same file is 6 megs in size. So it's gone through some changes, it's grown a little, perhaps got some new features. So in the existing Delta world, what would we do? Well, we would send you that whole new 6 megabyte file from the 1540 release, and package it up in a PKG and send it down to you. So for files that haven't changed, of course, you get a save in there because we don't have to ship you files that haven't changed since 1539. The problem with this is that, every binary will implicitly change because it's been recompiled. It's going to have a new build number on it, and so that's what makes up the bulk of those Delta updates. It's shipping you new binaries. How does ultra thin work? Well, let's go through that same example. 5 meg old file, 6 meg new file. We use a tool which is actually built into Mac OS X called BSDiff, which can perform a binary diff. At the binary level, what are the differences between this old file and the new file? And it will spit out a patch file, a .pat file, which is the binary representation for that diff. So, in a very simplistic way, this is a 1 meg file because it's gone through, 1 meg of changes. And then we put all of those in a PKG, and that is the ultra thin update. And then when we download it, we then run another tool which is built into the operating system called BS Patch, and Patch will take that PAT file and it will update the binary representation of that old file to make it the new representation. Kind of sounds simple, but I kind of always like to throw in the example of the German grammar checker. So I don't know how many of you use the German grammar checker, but it is built into, all of our apps. Word is where you would most use it. And because, of course, we're, universal, it doesn't matter whether you're, always in the States or whether you live over in Asia, you have the German grammar checker built in, and you're going to take a hit every time, we add a new style to that. Well, I was doing some analysis a couple of months ago, and we had added a new style to the German grammar checker, which is 99 megs in size. In the Delta world, that means that we have to ship you a new 99 meg file because of that, fairly minute change. In the ultra thin world, that binary diff turned out to be 232 bytes in size. So you can now see why those ultra thin updates are way and so much smaller than what we have. So the MAU 4.0 beta will be subscribed into ultra thin updates, so you'll start seeing those immediately. And we'll have some telemetry that we collect on the back end here just to see how well they're working and if people are having a good time with them. And then at the same time as when we release MAU 4.0, then we'll release ultra thin at the same time. So those are the goodies that we've been working on over the past several months here. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions about any of the session, whether it's about the 16x builds or whether it's MAU or Office 2019.
So what I'm going to do is move this chair over, and I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions. Please come up here so that you can speak into the microphone. They can hear you, plus we can hear you, and they can actually see you. It'd be kind of nice because they don't get to see what we see. They've been looking at me like the last 45 minutes. Sorry. So,
and for anybody on the stream, feel free to drop any of your questions into the Macbrained Twin Cities Slack channel as well. We're monitoring there for questions as well.
So there is one question in the Slack channel right now while we wait for folks in the main room. Someone asks if the binary diff measures against an expected checksum to determine success.
Yes, it does. So we have a checksum for the old file, and the new file, and when we apply the diff, we then check the checksum and verify that it is still, the same file. Of course, we have to worry about code signatures as well. So it's not just the code signature on the outer app bundle, but within the frameworks, we have to maintain the integrity of the seal. And of course, a lot of the time that is spent us, developing this feature is been actually trying to make it reliable, which is kind of no mean feat. The other thing that Mao will do is it has a fail-safe option, and if Mao tries to apply a binary update and things have gone terribly wrong, and the app is in a corrupt or unlaunchable state, Mao will detect that and will immediately repair it for you. The repair, rightly wrongly, goes through downloading the full update, because that is that's the safest possible resolution.
Switches back so they can see us instead of screen sharing.
Oh, yeah.
So nobody's stepping up yet. Mike's getting ready to step up, but before I have him ask his question, Paul, you did a really cool demonstration to your management. You kind of told us about it in Slack, where you updated all these different Macs in different states. Can you tell folks what you did and how that worked with the new Mal?
Yeah, sure. So I had there's some training rooms here, and they have like a bunch of Macs in them. And of course, after a training class, there are, the Macs are in various states. Sometimes the apps are launched, sometimes they're, the machines are in a logged off state where the user is logged off. So, it's just like a regular user environment. You've got a whole bunch of machines that kind of is in like a disarray. You're not too sure, what's going on with them. But Bill and the rest of the Jamf team was kind enough to give me a Jamf Pro cloud instance that I could play around with here. And so I uploaded MS Update, the new Mal 4 package, into Jamf Pro, and I set my profile correctly. I got all the machines enrolled, and I was simply able to, run MS Update and get all of the machines updated to the latest version of Office, even the machines that weren't even logged on with a user account. And that's, pretty much impossible right now, because Mao just so much relies on that user being present to run.
Hi, I've got a question, but first I just wanted to thank you so much for getting this out and engaging on the Slack. It's wonderful getting this feedback and just seeing the progress and seeing what you guys are doing. So thank you very much.
Sure.
We're happy to do it.
We'll keep it up.
Yeah, it's awesome. The question is, we've had some good success with caching server. Could you talk a little bit if this is going to leverage on top of that, or if we should perhaps postpone rolling that out and evaluate the ultra-thin updates?
Sure. Yeah. So caching server is definitely kind of useful in two scenarios. The first is where you have you want very strict version control over which builds are in your kind of production ring, because you can essentially coerce Mao to set its like upper limit for which versions it detects. The second reason for deploying a caching server is so that you can just download one instance of the PKGs and have Mao pick it up locally. Mao caching server is still complementary in a Mao 4.0 world. There is kind of no direct overlap. One thing that we are looking at doing in Mao 4.0, this is not in the first beta though, is to be able to specify a version for Mao to deploy. So for that version control scenario, you can tell Mao, we want to be able to add the functionality where you can tell Mao, I know Mao, you've detected 15.40, but I specifically want you to take this user to 15.39. That's the version that is blessed in my environment, and I want you to get there. Along with that, we are also looking at making Mao smart in terms of rollbacks as well. So if you've had a user that's upgraded to like an insider fast build, and you need to get them back onto a production build. Today you kind of have to jump through a few hoops and remove their apps, and then you also have to look at the Outlook database version to make sure that it's compatible. But we also want to kind of build that functionality into MAU as well, where you can say to MAU, I know you're on a later version, but I want you to roll back, and roll back in a smart and safe way to get this user machine back into line again. So yeah, the kind of the versioning capabilities of the caching server will kind of over time will become less prominent as MAU has this functionality built in. The ultra thin updates, yeah, we really hope that the bandwidth savings there means that you won't need to deploy a caching server, because even though a caching server is lightweight and it runs on Nginx or Apache or IIS, there's still a piece of infrastructure that you need to manage in your environment, right? And we would love to take all of that infra away and just have you completely kind of cloud-based, right, where you just rely on our content delivery network. And so I'm hoping that people who have deployed the caching server, they'll go through that rethought process, and perhaps they'll decide, ultra thin actually solves the problem. I don't need the overheads of this caching server anymore.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, thanks to the whole team and for putting the knowledge base articles and the MacAdmin software site. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
There's another question on the Slack channel. Will OfficeForMac.com be updated with how you're managing the test Macs with Jamf Pro and MS Update MAU 4?
Interesting. Yeah. So so one thing I've actually done is I've put together a video that will go on the OfficeForMac.com website tomorrow, and that video actually is a kind of an intro to MS Update, and it I walk through various demo examples of what you can do and how it works. But I also actually walked through a Jamf Pro demo as well of the correct way currently thought of as to how you'd use MS Update with Jamf Pro 10. There's hopefully that will kind of give you some insight as to what the current thought and best practices are there. I'm working pretty closely with the Jamf team, especially guys like John Miller, who are working on patch policies there, and hopefully we'll have some kind of more integration features between MS Update and Jamf Pro coming in the near future.
Hello, I'm Karen McElroy.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. I work for Minneapolis Public Schools, and I'm curious about the font placement that you've switched where fonts are residing. And now it's inside the Word application. We have people that are using 1011 machines, 1010 machines, and they have other applications that they use the Microsoft fonts for. And now when they're collaborating with other people with 1012 machines, at least in our environment, they're not seeing the fonts. And so all the work that they're doing is really frustrating them.
Yes.
Is there anything that we should know about the fonts? Can we make them available to other applications?
So there are two things involved here. So the first is, and they're both kind of the legal technical. So the first issue is sandboxing. Because the apps are sandboxed, and because we have built them in a way that they could be deployed through the Mac App Store from Apple, we don't have an installer that puts content in lots of places on your hard drive. The apps themselves are completely standalone, and therefore they have to contain their own copy of the fonts. That's why the fonts are duplicated into all the apps. As for whether you can share them or not, unfortunately, legally, no. Our licensing agreement gives us the rights to distribute the fonts with Office. And it just so happened that the way we distributed them in the past was through a common install point into the /library fonts Microsoft folder. But because we're not installing there anymore, legally you're not supposed to put them anywhere outside the Office apps.
Oh, that's really harsh.
That's
Sorry.
our agreement with whoever authored the fonts. I can't control what you do. All I can tell you is that our agreement says you shouldn't do that.
All right. That puts it in a very dubious position, but thank you very much for the answer.
I apologize for that. We've definitely heard that feedback, and we recognize that, you know, some of the fonts, Calibri and others, have become fairly commonly and widely used, particularly because on Windows, they're installed as part of the operating system. That's different on the Mac.
Yeah. I think the Office 2011 download is still available. Which is
not supported anymore.
It's not supported, but you know it's still you can license it as a free viewer tool, but you may not wish to use the applications. I guess I'll leave it like that.
Greetings. Are there any plans to move other apps into MAU, specifically Microsoft Teams, and even Visual Studio Code?
Sorry, I missed the last part of that. The question.
Visual Studio Code would be nice to have that in there as well. Both of apps update very weird in my environment.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, a few of our apps have different update models. Teams currently have, essentially it's an Electron app, and it uses the Squirrel updater because Electron and Squirrel are pretty tightly bound together. And you know, it's kind of like Slack in terms of it's, you know, it's a lot of JavaScript with a a thin Objective, well, a thin Swift core around it. I have been talking pretty closely with the Teams developers, and they've been in my office several times in the past few weeks, and we've been talking about, what is a better way for Teams to update in an enterprise or a managed setting, because they realize that, the current mechanism really isn't conducive because it just, if you're not an admin on the box, it, doesn't work. And MAU is our established update tool that we use from Microsoft for updating, and we invest heavily in it. And so yeah, the Teams folks, they've got some engineering work to do, but they're kind of heads down, and they're doing the right thing right now. I'm not sure as to when they're going to come out with a separate PKG and with full MAU integration, but yeah, absolutely, that is a high priority for them. OneDrive is the other app that people ask about, and there are good reasons why OneDrive cannot be MAU enabled, and it's mainly around the server backend farm that OneDrive talks to. There are different versions, and the client and the server have to be tightly coupled together, and so OneDrive has its own kind of helper mechanism which is implemented. Actually, I think it works actually pretty well in a managed environment, but it intentionally doesn't use MAU, and there are no plans for MAU integration there. As for the VS products, I haven't had any conversations there, but you kind of reminded me that I should probably go hit up my good friend Miguel and see what he's up to, and see whether he wants to join the MAU party.
Someone just put a question on Slack.
Yeah, so question on Slack is, sorry I came in late and missed most of the presentation.
That's
so
okay.
Perhaps you addressed this, but if not, I'd like to ask if Office 2016 for Mac will have better, pretty please, feature and performance parity between Mac and Windows Excel. For the love of Zool.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Not 100%, but much better. Yes.
And I'm sure Bill will make the live stream available on YouTube shortly.
Yes, it will be coming out shortly. That's actually fairly close to what my question was, is just some of the feature parity pieces, especially with handling large file sizes around Microsoft Excel. That's something that we've heard even at these meetups in the past as well.
I don't know of anything specifically targeted at large files. So that said, if you give the 16.x releases a try, and if you encounter bugs or issues with them, please send us feedback. You can do it on email, you can do it on Slack, you can do it on Twitter. Reach out to us, let us know. We will engage and talk to Excel folks.
I think kind of one of the somewhat scary things from an engineering perspective is releasing the 16x builds. We're kind of not too sure what works and what doesn't. It's like,
I work below the apps. If they boot, they work, right?
Right. We found in several cases bugs that have been long-standing issues in the Mac Office apps. They've disappeared simply because we've moved to the shared code base.
Very cool. So because you're seeing me, that means there's no more questions.
Really? That's it?
Well, you guys have answered. I would love to know how many questions you probably answered in Slack over the past, goodness, it'll be, I think, 2 years for both of you coming up in January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you answered a few questions here. I think you more than answered your fill of questions in Slack. We really greatly appreciate that. I'm going to echo what Mike said a while ago. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say that a nice loud round of applause. Maybe you can hear it.
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Maybe for the next meetup we should get Jeff Calvis here. It'll be like the trifecta.
Does everybody know who Jeff is? Outlook. So if you've got questions about Outlook, we've got a lot of heads nodding.
Many
here,
yes
so
please
that's
from the
a
audience.
very popular suggestion.
See what we can do.
We'll go ahead and let you go. We've got some swag to give away, and then we'll be calling it a night. We'll probably be heading over to Runyon's for drinks afterwards. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thank
See ya.
you. All right. At this point, this is typically when we start asking folks if there's anything else you'd like to cover. Let me see if I can find our slides here. So, anybody have any announcements, events, job openings? Got Patrick.
I'd say in the next week or so, South Washington County Schools will be posting a building tech job for one high school. So doesn't pay terribly, doesn't pay well, but it is.
I get to work with you?
That's not a plus.
Anybody else? Job openings, events that are happening in your neck of the woods. There is an Apple event. I can't remember exactly where it's at. There's been several around. But typically for education, I think there's one left.
Probably drive outside somewhere.
Is it? Yeah. It's probably so far out we don't care. Right?
I think it's southeast somewhere.
Southeast.
Yeah. For the folks who drove up from Rochester, you'll have something close by.
Let's see. There we go. So for those of you who may or may not know it, out on our website, mspmacadmins.org, if you add a /events to the end of that, as much as I can, every time I see something, I try to post it out. And one of the things that we talked about was, this is JNUC. Whenever we just finished JNUC, that's something that's in our own backyard. What would be really cool, and I encourage you, if you can, find one more conference, probably that's not in your backyard. Whether you're in education, find an education conference or commercial. Penn State, MacTech is happening right now out in Los Angeles. Find one more conference. I guarantee you're going to probably find other folks here who are going with you or will go with you. And if you enjoy JNUC, they're not just limited to just once a year. You got conferences that will start in February, which is MacAdmins, and they'll just be lasting all through November again next year. So again, if you go out to our website, just add /events to the end of that.
And I know several folks here have gone to it, but in my opinion, one of the best MacAdmin conferences, especially for folks in education, but really has gotten an even wider commercial audience as well, is the Penn State MacAdmins Conference. We were just looking up the dates. It's July 10th through the 13th, 2018.
So if you want to try to start penciling that into your calendar, it's a fantastic conference. I didn't go last year so that I could send other folks to more conferences, but it's a fantastic conference to go to. If you haven't been to that one, I can't recommend it enough. Another conference that's also going to be coming up that's a local-ish conference is Brainstorm, which is held in the Wisconsin Dells, March 4th through the 6th. So that's another great conference. There are basically all of the industries. They also have the actual vendor presentations, but they make them, partner with someone who's deployed it, so it's not just a sales spiel. It's about someone who's actually doing something. So that's a really good conference as well. I know the TIES for education, the TIES Technical Leadership Conference, which is their technical conference. They just announced the dates today. It's February 8th and 9th. That's a conference that's held up in St. Cloud at the River Center Convention Center up there. So there are certainly some other opportunities out there. Does anybody else have any events, conferences, things to talk about there? Otherwise, if you didn't notice before you left the office today, iOS 11.1.2 dropped. So there you go. It is now so that my phone will work when I go outside tonight. It's the fix your iPhone 10 when it gets cold. Just keep it on. So, anything else at all?
I think they just want us to give stuff away.
All right. So if you remember, we've got some great swag to give away here tonight. Some courtesy Jamf, some courtesy Veronis. We have if you're a CAH player. We've got the special IT card set for Cards Against Humanity, which of course, certainly not as safe for work.
How many folks know what Cards Against Humanity is?
Everybody know?
Most of
CAH, all right. So we have
it's for terrible people.
JNUC, yeah, it's for terrible people, and that's actually what they call themselves. Remember last year during the holidays, you could give money just to help them continue digging a hole. That was for no reason. So you could do that. They also just bought a bunch of land right along the Mexican border, just because they wanted to. To stop the wall. To stop the wall, yeah. They apparently worked with them. They took their money, their profits for this year, and basically worked with an eminent domain lawyer to structure a land purchase in such a way to make it hard to be acquired. So, all right, let's get going with some swag giveaways here.
All right, so Brad asked me very first thing, it's like, have you come up with a way to give away who's going to decide, how we get what? And he suggested the idea of, audience participation. So we gave away a little bit. And now we do my way, which is we're just going to do random numbers here. I've got everybody who registered. Your name is on here. And a wonderful little function that you can put into Excel is called random between. And then if you add to the, let's do that again. Between, you put in parentheses, and we have about, I think, 33 folks, 33. So you put, say, between 1 and 33, and it's not really between, it's inclusive. But close that off. That gives me a number here. Now what I'm going to do is drag this down and fill out the rest. And we'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoever, as we get rid of the swag, we'll let you come up and pick what you want. So start dragging. Come on, keep going. I should have, but I'm lazy.
Sounds like
Stop it. Oh.
Multi-threaded.
Let's do this again. There we go. All right. I see we've got a number 1 and Jason. Jason. Yeah, we do. We will have duplicates. All right. So we don't have Jason here tonight. Kastner. Oh, did you?
Is 25 the number 1?
Right here?
What do you mean?
So there's a 1 right here next to his name. So if you'd like to come up and grab something, anybody else is a 1?
There's like 3 or 4 18s.
That's normal. We're just going to pick. We'll start with the 1s. We'll do the 2s. We'll do the 3s.
All right. Who's number 2?
All right. Do we have a number 2? We've got a number 3. All right. Number 3 would be next. That's going to be Dan. All right. And we've got Joseph, number 4. And that's the only number 4 I see. Is Joseph here? Ah, he missed out. All right. See, anybody see a number 5 on here? Nope, but I do see a 6. That's Mark Sampers. He is. There you go. Excellent.
All right.
We have a number 7 anywhere. Nope, no 7. I do see an 8. Jill, she's not here. Tell her she missed out.
Chris.
Jill's here? I don't see. Oh, there you are.
Come on down.
Sorry. I saw Lisa earlier. I didn't see you. All right, that's 8. Do we have a number 9 anywhere here? Karen McElroy.
You can get
there you go. Do we have a 10 or 11? I have a 10. Don.
So
no 11.
We'll just start rapid fire and going here.
Yeah. Do we have a 12? Don't see it. 13. Help me here. 14. I see a 15.
See several 15s.
All right. We've got Elizabeth for 15. We've also got Patrick. And Ken, grab your stuff. If you
got Pete.
Pete.
We've got.
Is that all of our 15s?
That's all of our 15s.
My goodness. Any 16s here?
I saw some at the top, at least one.
There's 116. Michael. Mike. Where's Mike? There you go. How are we doing? I don't want to have people come up and not have anything.
I feel like the stack over here is growing.
Growing.
All right. So
Giving JNX flag back.
Clinton. Thank you very much.
All right. Who's next? 20?
Foster.
I don't see him. Do I see a 22?
Is there 17?
Oh, 6. There's 2 18s.
All right, 18. Some way to sort.
Someday it'll come to the match.
Matt's getting a card tonight, so he's out. Chris? Oh, we are. Oh, I see.
We're totally live streaming.
I haven't said anything yet.
Yeah. We'll make you feel better. Yeah.
All right, what else we got here? I think, are we just around